The 4 reasons why your breathing may suck. So what are those 4 reasons? Your environment, maybe we're sitting too much, vanity, our clothing, and then one that encompasses all of those is learned behavior. So let's break down each one of these separately. So our environment, we're sitting, this is no news to anybody. If it is, please get on Google every once in a while. Supposedly sitting is the new smoking. I got news for you. Being sedentary is the new smoking. So just being in whatever position, standing, sitting, you could literally be in a squat all day long. That still wouldn't be good for you. I know that there's probably people that argue with me. But when we sit, we're in flexion. And when we sit with really bad posture, which is what most of us do, very few people sit with good sitting posture. But when we sit with this kind of slouched over position, our diaphragm and our pelvic floor get a little closer together. They become unapproximated, so a little angulated against one another. And as we breathe, it's just harder to breathe through your diaphragm and keep really good spinal stability. So what do? We revert to what's called secondary respiration. Future video, we'll talk about primary, secondary respiration. We'll define good and bad breathing, all of that. So look for those videos. But when we sit and we revert to secondary respiration, that kind of looks like this. I'm going to exaggerate, but right? We're using muscles of secondary respiration. All the muscles of the anterior neck, your trapezius, your intercostals, these things that should be reserved for exercise, fight or flight, when we need to bring more O2 in to deliver that O2 to our muscles. When we're sitting at our desk at work, we do not need more oxygen. If anything, most people are chronic hyperventilators and are breathing either too deep too often or too little too often, and we're drawing more O2 into the system, which throws us down a whole different tunnel of problems. So number 1, sitting or just being sedentary, our overall environment. 2, vanity. Thank you, Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? He used to walk around with this abdominal hollow. His chest was a little bit smaller than mine, but he really had to accentuate this. And a lot of this became popular because at the same time that Arnold Schwarzenegger really popularized bodybuilding, research came out of Australia that talked about the transverse abdominis and this abdominal hollow creating good core stability. Well, that's just not so. That's not how we create good core stability. So when we get taught from societal norms, right, this is usually, we see more women are affected by this just because, say we're by the pool and a woman's wearing a bikini and they don't want to have their friends think that they put on a couple lbs, we tend to suck in. Guys do it too. This is not a sexist problem. But those societal norms bleed into dysfunction. If I walk around with my abdominal hollow all day, that might as well be the same as sitting, and now I have to revert to this secondary respiration pattern, and now over time my really good looking midsection becomes dysfunctional. I'm going to have back pain, and now you're like, man, I look really good in a bikini, but my back is killing me. So I let my patients do this suck in by the pool the whole rest of the day. They're working on breathing right. 3rd would be clothing. So in our society, we're moving further away from this, but think of your really post-World War II, United States. It was women were wearing, high-waisted skirts, blouses, dress. We moved away a little bit from corsets, but we still even today have very restrictive clothing made for women, Spanx, things like this. Yeah, they're lycra and spandex and can stretch, but the whole goal is to pull you in. So that may as well just be a perma abdominal hollow. But guys as well, business suits, tight restrictive dress pants, belts, suspenders. Think of all these things that pull us into positions just from a clothing standpoint that create dysfunction. And there have actually been psychological studies done on how we perceive ourselves and how others perceive us in clothing like a business suit, and also how that changes our movement. So you're seeing a lot of these bigger corporations that are also looking at what we would call dynamic ergonomics, how we move around the workplace, that look at clothing choices, especially Google is one of those, that they really don't want people to dress up because they know, A, it's comfort, but if you're comfortable, you're more apt to move. The more you move, the more productive you are, and that's what businesses are all about. So the 4th reason your breathing may suck is kind of all-encompassing, and this is learned behavior. So as we were evolving as humans, we became really adept at looking at other humans' movements so we could learn fine motor skills like making spearheads, cooking, cleaning an animal, tanning a hide, because we didn't have the level of verbal communication that we do nowadays. So carry forward to 2017, that processing is still in our prefrontal and motor cortex, and where a lot of the theories of where these mirror neurons are being activated. You may have heard of mirror neurons. These are the same things we think that we're working on when we do mirror therapy with like a stroke patient. So if a stroke patient has one side of the body that doesn't work and one side that does, we're going to put the side that doesn't work behind the mirror. The good side, we can see ourselves in the mirror, and then we practice moving both, and we can use those mirror neurons to learn a task from ourselves. So now let's talk about breathing with your kids in these mirror neurons. At about 5 to 8 years old, we know that kids they're through the developmental stages of infancy and toddler, and now they're moving pretty well, coordination's coming along, and now we're looking for fine motor skill. So what do? We see an uptick in these mirror neurons, and who are they watching the most? They're watching you, the parent. And if I'm the parent that's wearing tight restrictive clothing, sitting at my computer all day, and then sucking in on the weekends at the pool, and then little Johnny sees me doing that, and he also may pick up on a sigh every once in a while, or a yawn, or just this, exaggerated secondary respiration. Well, those kids are picking up those patterns, and when that's the age, 6 to 8 years old, is where we see that kids are either going to stay in this primary respiration pattern, or they shift into that secondary respiration pattern. So through working on your environment, your clothing, and reducing your vanity needs, you can also help the next generation of breathers and hopefully not create dysfunction in your kids. So I hope you got buy-in for yourself, but if you don't, I know everybody's got buy-in with their kids. 4 reasons why your breathing may suck. Future videos we'll talk about good versus bad breathing, how you can incorporate breathing training in your routine. We got a whole series coming on breathing. As always, stay healthy, guys.